The Twitter universe was all buzz yesterday when Steven Strasburg was out in center field. One report had him doing long tosses after the game. Is there any light you can shine on that? And what's it been like to watch these 5 starting pitchers for you? I know the numbers haven't been as great as everyone thought they would be so far, but still, you have 5 pretty good arms in that starting rotation.
Yeah, I'd say as far as the numbers, come back in 3 months and let's look at them again and see where they are. Everything at the beginning of the year, if it isn't microscopic out of the gate, everything is magnified because, you know, you have nothing else in front of it. It's, you know, the Nationals start out 7-13. They had a 7-13 stretch last year in May, but there was something in front of that didn't make it look as bad. And again, these numbers are always averages. So over the course of 6 months, they'll average out to where they're supposed to be if they're doing what everybody expects. Steven, as far as yesterday, was out after the game. And I didn't speak to anyone after the game about that. He came out after the clubhouse was closed and everything was off limits. And Matt Williams was out there. Trainer Lee Kuntz was out there. Pitching coach Steve McCaddy. Their therapist was out there. And, you know, we found out that the orthopedic surgeon cleared him that there was nothing wrong, which means the chiropractor could do their thing and did the adjustment. And then he went out there and threw. And I thought that was a very positive sign because he came out of the game the day before. If there was anything wrong with your shoulder, they thought there was anything physically wrong, he wouldn't have been throwing a baseball the next day.
A few weeks ago, you had a wild game. I was talking to one of the Nationals beat reporters. He said it was one of the wildest games he had ever seen. I'm referring to the 13-12 win over Atlanta. What was that game like to call as a radio announcer? And is that a game that we could look back and say that might be a springboard game? Because it seems like the Nationals, since that come-from-behind win, have really been playing on a different level since that victory. Well,
you were staring at a 7th consecutive loss, down 9-1 and 10-2, and you had been 7-14 at that point of the year, and you'd have been 8 games out of first place. That's a long way, even though it was still midway through April. And Jose Lobaton did a 3-run homer, kind of got them back in the game. And, you know, amazingly, they come back and win with the ultimate 2-run homer in the 9th inning. And then they score 13 runs the next night, win big 13-4, and they go into New York, score 8 runs on the Mets, taking advantage of an error that they made, and the game blew up for the Mets. And then they proceed to take 3 of 4 for the Mets, 2 of 3 for the Marlins, one kind of clinker game in the middle of that series with Miami. But the other reasons, the offense is still very inconsistent. They haven't done well as a team, driving in runners from scoring position. The defense has been much better than it was early on. Ian Desmond made 8 errors in the first 12 games and 1 in the last 15 or 16 now, and that's kind of how he rolls. He's starting to hit now where he didn't at the beginning. They have a lot of guys who are streaky hitters. So when they're all cold at the same time, that's how it started out. And if you get a number of them hot at the same time, they can roll off a bunch of wins. And I don't think, you know, Scherzer's been terrific every time that he's pitched. I think in yesterday's game, he got a little bit tired. They were trying to stretch another inning out of him because the bullpen was so depleted. And I think he fatigued. He hung a slider on and along at bat, and he hit a 3-run homer. But fortunately, the Nats had 7 runs on the board, so that all worked out.
Yeah. Coming up here, I know we have the day off today. You were hosting Atlanta, and then you have a West Coast swing going out to Arizona, San Diego. Then you come home and entertain the Yankees and Phillies. I know we're still early in May. Is anyone kind of looking at numbers, or you're 1 game under 500 at this point? Is anyone saying that, okay, by the end of this West Coast trip or by such and such a date, we'd like to be at this point to kind of rebound fully and look ahead to that point?
Well, I think until I've always had this kind of rule of thumb: unless you're better than 500 team, don't look at the standings. It really doesn't matter what anybody else is doing if you're not winning enough of your games. And I think this last week, got them close enough that, you knew the Mets were going to keep playing at a 13-3 pace the way they started the season. Yeah. And that they would come back to the pack a little bit. And right now I think the Nationals are just still trying to get all their pieces together, get everybody back. Worth missed the past couple of games. He should be back in the lineup tomorrow. You're waiting on Rendon. Casey Jansen is supposed to throw 1 inning for the Potomac Nationals tonight. Carolina League A ball affiliate, beginning his rehab. When he's back, that gives you another veteran presence in the late innings. The other thing that hurt the Nationals early on with the injury to Jansen, they entrusted the 8th inning to Blake Trinan. trying to hard throwing 96 to 99 mile an hour heavy sinker with a slider. But he wasn't able to command his pitches. In one game where not only was he wild, he misplayed a little dribbler back to the mound, threw after he bobbled it past home plate at Fenway. It went into the stands. 3 runs scored on the play, 2 errors on the play, 3 in the inning. And he's just really struggled in that role. So what changed this week? Tanner Roark, who's kind of been just hanging around, getting innings here and there. We're trying to use him in multiple inning situations. Well, how about his stuff playing in the 8th inning? They've done that twice this week. Actually, once where Storen had pitched 2 days in a row, and they didn't want him to go 3 days in a row. Roark came in the 9th inning and closed the game against Miami on Monday.
Yeah. Charlie, before we let you go, and again, we thank you for your time. I want to thank you. 7 years ago, I had a chance to meet you and some of your colleagues in the press box, and it was a great experience, and I thank you so much for sharing some time and some information with me. Also, I'll remember that day for 2 reasons. One, you and your colleagues in the press box were wonderful, but second of all, that day was the last time I spoke to Harry Kalas, the late great Phillies announcer. Could you just talk a little bit about what Harry meant to the game and how he was respected outside of the Philadelphia and Delaware Valley area and all around baseball?
Oh, Harry's one of the all-time greats. Everybody in your area knows that, and he was perceived that way all around baseball. If you got to hear him, whether he was calling a national baseball game on radio in years past, of course. National Football League games, the voice of NFL films. We kind of called him the voice of God. Harry came out. It was like, it's the voice of God. I got to know his son Todd really well because I worked with Tampa Bay Rays for their first 7 years. So I know Todd a long time. Yeah. And, you know, when I came back to Washington to do the Nationals was when I really got to know Harry on a regular basis. I used to see him in spring training because the Rays would play the Phillies a bunch. But we really got to talk and know each other better. And yeah, you know, when the Phillies were in town on the last homestand, you know, talking to their guys, it's still kind of eerie when they come up to the press box in Nationals Park on the 5th level there, because that's where that all happened on opening day 6 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Charlie, thanks so much for your time. We really appreciate it, and continued success to you and also the Nationals this year.
Thanks a lot.
All right, Charlie. Thanks again. Charlie Slows, the outstanding voice of the Washington Nationals.